Tēnā tātou, tēnei tete e tēnā mōtai e mihi kauatu ki koutou Ngāti Whātua, tēnei te mihi. He pato hau he wini raro, he ho mai aroha. Kanaka Māori scholar Honani K. Trask powerfully wrote, "To know my history, I had to put away my books and return to the land and learn the language. Our stories remain unwritten. It rests with the culture, which is inseparable from the land. To know this is to know our history. To know Māori, and therefore New Zealand history, we must also return to the whenua, to the nourishing arms of Papa Tuanuku, and to culture, our language, our practices, our beliefs, our intuition. Te reo Māori and te ao Māori must be taken seriously and not just decoratively, selectively, piecemeal as a side dish accompanying the main meal of New Zealand history. Māori sung and other forms of oral expression offer fertile, abundant source material, and so much more, grist to the historian's mill, structures, shapes, textures, tastes, scents, hues, feels. As creative historian, Albert Wendt writes, "The most revealing and meaningful histories about a people are the stories, the poems, the myths, the plays, the novels, written by those people about themselves." Waiata, haka, mōteatea, song, sung, chanted compositions form a rich vein of what I'm going to call history plus. More than providing source material for historians to mine, more than providing flowery flourish for historical narratives, kinaki for kōrero, poetry sprinkled prose. The songs help keep hope alive. The myriad forms, styles, and specific spatial and temporal contexts of waiata convey a shadow of a sense, an apparition of the enmeshed emotional, cognitive, physical, spiritual responses of tangata whenua in their world as they fully inhabited it. Such responses stretch through every vowel, every phrase, each carefully crafted expression in the rich tapestry of metaphor, simile, and other kinds of figurative and symbolic language, all this language which combines to form the songs. In the mid-19th century, when the full fury of the white man's anger, te riri Pākehā, was unleashed upon Māori, tangata whenua recorded something of these horrific events and their responses in the songs. New threads were woven into the pre-existing kaupapa, the base or the foundation of the memory fabric of the oral, and by this time also written literature of the people. He pato hau he wini raro, he ho mai aroha, kia tangi atu au I konei, he aroha ki te iwi. Waiata are composed and sung upon all manner of occasion and happening, all aspects of life in te ao Māori, from such a momentous occasion as the birth of a child to short, pithy works sung while presenting food to guests. Reminiscing about his youth during the years 1887 to 8, at home amongst his Ngāti Porou people at the time, Apirana Ngata recalled that he learnt to love the songs which my people sang to suit any and every occasion of their social life. As literary scholar Jane McRae puts it, there was scarcely a circumstance for which there might not be a song. Waiata were and are composed performed, learnt, relearnt, recorded, shared and sung every day on schools, on marae, in churches and other places of worship, in workplaces, on rivers, in boats, homes, meeting rooms, sheds, sports clubs and more. Although waiata are a common, constant, everyday occurrence in te ao Māori, their significance and power should not be underestimated. In regards to whai kōrero, formal oratory, senior statesman, again, Apirana Ngata himself said, kaore he taonga e tua atu i ngā waiata. Kei reira e takoto ana te reo iri te moia ahua, moia ahua. Historian Te Ahukaramu Charles Royal agrees with his whanaunga Te Wari Te Rei's assertion that waiata are he taonga te whiwhia, he taonga te rawea, hei mauri whakakaha i te hinengaro o ngauri kei te tupu ake nei. In a recent podcast on a series on Mōteatea, kaitahu leader, scholar Hannah O'Regan describes Mōteatea thus. He waka hei kawe atu i ka whakaaro, i ka kāre aroto, i ka kaupapa, i ka kōrero, tuku iho a te iwi, ki ka uri whakaheke. Ki te hāpori tonu, ki te maria, i ki au he waka te Mōteatea. I te mea herere kē o na taki, herere kē tōna āhua. I kari ko te mahi a te waiata, ko te mahi a te Mōteatea, heri te tonu. Kia utaina kiuruka ki taua waka e rā mea, hei kawe atu kia takata kē, kia wāhi kē, kia ao kē. E pātō hau, by te rangi āmua of Ngāti Apakura, is one such waka, a vessel that carries the feelings, topical issues, and the history of the people for descendants and for the wider community. Rangi Āmoa lived at Rangiaowhia, an undefended settlement near Te Awa Mutu when it was attacked by British troops, the people driven away. Raping, pillaging, plundering, destroying crops and other heinous crimes followed. Their lands were later confiscated. A section of Ngāti Apakura trekked off in the direction of Taupo, and at Titiro, Te Wano, a close relative of Rangi Āmoa, asked his people to climb the mountain so that he might have a view of the land in the direction of their home. Te Wano died and was buried there. From Titiro, Ngāti Apakura went on and found refuge amongst Ngāti Tūwharetoa kin at Waihi and Tokānu. But here they were afflicted by karawaka, some kind of epidemic illness, and ka mate tō rātou nuinga. Most of them succumbed. In lamenting the death of her whanaunga, her cousin, Rangi Āmoa mourned the fate of all of her people. Kamo motu ki tā, whiti ki pā e rau. Ko ai e ki te atu. To this day, e pāto hau is sung on marae all around the motu and other sites, where descendants and Māori in general gather. Much like the humble, some might say antiquated turntable, the needle is stuck on the record at the moment of Rangiaowhia, and the devastating holding pattern Māori have been forcibly locked into by the colonisers and their descendants ever since. Moreover, for tangata Māori, there is, at least on one level, no sense of time past. The shape of time in Te Ao Māori is perhaps best conveyed by Māori writer Patricia Grace, whose character Roimata in her 1986 novel Pōtiki reflects on stories. She realises that it was a new discovery to find that these stories were, after all, about our own lives. They were not distant. There was no past or future. The all-time is a now time, centred in the being. The centred being in this now time simply reaches out. in any direction toward the outer circles, and these outer circles are named the past and the future, only for convenience. The now is a giving and receiving between the inner and the outer reaches. But the enormous difficulty is to achieve refinement and reciprocity, because the wheel, the spiral, is balanced so exquisitely. The events of Rangiawhia are fresh in some tangata whenua minds, many tangata whenua minds, as fresh as yesterday. And the reverberations are continually felt in a distinctly unsettling way by many more. For non-te reo Māori speakers, English language translations provide some guidance as to the meaning of the waiata, but the deeper meaning and the power of the composition is only accessible in the original, in its performance in specific contexts in te reo Māori. E pāto hau, for example, is often glossed as gently blows the wind, but whereas hau can and does mean wind, it also has far more profound philosophical underpinnings approximating vitality, or vital essence of a person, place, or object. This later meaning is reinforced by the use of the possessive, in some linguistics, the possessive pronoun tō, literally your hau in e pāto hau. This aligns with Mānuka Henare, Matua Mānuka's startling corrective of the late 19th to early 20th century Pākehā researcher Elsden Best's transcription, translation, interpretation, and publication of Ngāti Raukawa expert Tamati Ranapiri's comments on hau. It is too crude an approach, however, to simply separate the meanings of hau into wind on the one hand and vital essence on the other. The two are bound. One might feel a certain breeze waft over one's face and simultaneously perceive the presence of someone or something. All or any of the human senses may be involved. Here, the sweet honey almond scent of peach trees in full bloom. There, an ominous breeze from the north. The sound of nothing, where once a thriving community once lived, loved, worked and played. In a recent E Tangata article, Hazel Coromandel Wanda shares kōrero tuku iho, kōrero memories handed down from her great-grandmother Victoria Pahi, Wikitoria Pahi, who was a teenager when Rangiawhia was invaded. She recalls the abundance of kai, the vegetable gardens, the acres of orchards with pītiti, fig and other fruit trees, the ovens which could bake hundreds of rohi, loaves of bread at a time. Victoria's promising future, Wikitoria, being shockingly disrupted on February 21st, 1864, when Imperial troops stormed the village. Wikitoria was the only member of her immediate whānau from Rangiawhia who lived to tell her story. Kei whea ku hoi muara, i te tōnuitanga. She was among a small group who made it to Puketarata, the papakainga of the iti Waipukura, just north of Ōtorohanga. Due to the severity of the damage and destruction rained down upon Ngāti Apakura by the white colonial invaders, Wikitoria's name was changed to Te Mamai, wounded, sorrow, pain. Te Mamai was betrothed to Whakamau Te Wirihana, and they went on to have a family of 11 children, each of whom was given a name based on the catastrophic events of Rangiawhia. Her firstborn, Te Wera, was named in memory of the fierce heat that her people felt that day from the church burning. Te Pupuhi was named for the memory of the shrapnel from the bullets whistling all around. Maringi was named for the spilling of tears over the blood on the land. Te Rātapu was named Sunday for the day the whānau were burned in a Pākehā church. Naming is a powerful practice through which tangata whenua do history. Historical memory is kept alive in the names and their accompanying narratives. Whakapapa chronicles the pain, the suffering, life, death, love, and exuberance of the people, and memory is all important. Again, as Albert Wendt notes, a society is what it remembers. We are what we remember. I am what I remember. The self is a trick of memory. History has everything to do with memory and remembering. History is the remembered tightrope that stretches across the abyss of all that we have forgotten. Te Mamai also composed the Oriori, a song which serves as an important repository of history. Many such songs were born of the wreckage of white aggression in Aotearoa. Many have been recorded in writing. Some have found their way into manuscript collections in the archives of who would become the powerful white colonial elite whose actions led to the dispossession and marginalisation given expression to in the same songs. A couple hundred of such waiata were collected and later published by John McGregor. George Gray himself collected hundreds of waiata, whakamoteatea, some of which name him and memorialise some of his actions, others which are connected to him. Kamatu, much remains to be done. Not many people are doing this kind of work. No mai, as the matua said this morning, haere mai. More should, in my opinion. Waiata are one way to access Māori perspectives and views on the wars in a historiography heavily weighted on the side of Pākehā. Tēnā tātou.